welcome back to the channel. And today what I want to talk about is how everybody is upset with everything that's going on. Let's see, it is June 2020 and people are mad. People are mad because of basically what's going on with the police in Minneapolis, and rightfully so, I guess, to an extent. Things may need to change, and that is understandable. The question is, to what end? And the reason I say that is because I'm starting to think people have an expectation of a perfect world. Okay? And what I mean by that is, at some point, I don't know if people are hoping for like a preemptive action. Okay? For example, let's say you had a mass shooter, okay? To me, when he gets arrested or shot by the police, I call that justice, okay? And if there's some police brutality situation and that cop is then tried, okay, for his actions and fired, I would consider that justice. But people seem to be calling for more than that. Like, for example, well, from now on, maybe we can just arrest people that we think are going to be mass shooters. And if we just won't have any white cops because they could tend to be racist. Or they could just be the meter maids and stuff. And for a while, I thought, you know what, that'd be a good idea. I mean, that could solve the problem. But then I think that people will still say that the police are corrupt. Hey, they got the power, and power tends to corrupt. What's interesting about that is it seems to me that the same people that find the executive branch so corrupt are the same people that are calling for a fair, equal socialism system where they can trust that government, because that somebody has to control it, right? Same way with communism, that government is going to make sure everything is fair. But you're saying that the government we have right now isn't being fair. So I don't know how that government would be trustworthy. You could trust them to be completely fair. I think they would be corrupt. And it would basically be the same thing you have now, except for you wouldn't have the opportunity to become wealthy or get ahead. It would just be only the politicians are rich and corrupt. Other than that, some people say, well, we already got that. Yeah, you already got that, but you can actually get ahead if, it's like, it's an equal opportunity, but it's not you're not guaranteed an equal pay, just guaranteed the equal opportunity. Anyways, back to the subject. I think people want a perfect world. This bully-free zone, there's always going to be a bully. You have 800,000 cops in the United States. There's always going to be, one that's racist and or brutal, or abuses his power. And even if you didn't have any guns, you would still have one mass shooter. You can't be preemptive. There's no solution to most of this stuff. But yet, you have people out here that are protesting, and I'm not really sure what they're, it's almost like, I imagine it in my mind, like, okay, so what are they hoping for? It's like the person that cries out it's not fair, but they don't actually have any solution that they can suggest. To me, there's a lot of other ways that people could take out maybe their frustrations. For everybody that drove out to a protest, maybe they could have sent the family money, started GoFundMe. Maybe his family would have got $1 million. With everybody involved, I think at least maybe a few million. And in other words, you're building up instead of tearing down. And when I say tear down, I mean because while not all protests turned into riots and burned down the city, okay, not everywhere where there was a protest there was a burnt down city, but nowhere was there a burnt down city where there wasn't a protest. So like if I was a protest, if I was joining in on that, I would think to myself, well, let's just put it this way. When somebody asked if there was going to be an activist, a get together, a march in my town, I thought, what are you hoping to do? Get it burnt down? I mean, And you could, I mean, we're trying to, petition for a recall of our governor. They could petition to recall that sheriff. They could, like I said, start a GoFundMe. They could come up with a solution for the problem that they have. Rather than, to me, the protest is just kind of like a cry out to the authorities hoping for a solution without actually presenting one. Now, I want to say a couple things. One, this YouTube channel, okay, if I wanted to make a video, if I wanted to really get paid, because I'm not actually getting paid with these videos, but if I did, here's one way I could go about that. What I could do is I could try by filming all police, get a scanner, go around and film police all the time. And if I could catch one in the act, where he's patrolling and he's making an arrest, and if I can manage to not film any of the resist of arrest, or if you just have, let's say, a criminal and a cop in a altercation, that's not really going to sell that well. But if I can make the criminal look like a victim, okay, by either cutting out or not filming certain parts, the more I make him look like a victim, the more money I'm going to make. Because the more people are going to share the video, the more they're going to like the video, the more they're going to be reactive to the video. And I'm not saying that that's always the case, but I am saying that's why every video I see, I always question it. Because, again, you're always going to have somebody out there trying to get paid to do this, so they're going to be trying to create a false narrative so that they're going to get the likes and shares and stuff. And I know a lot of people aren't thinking about stuff like that. This is the first time that I've ever thought, well, I can't even voice my opinion because people will think I'm a racist, or people will think I'm not politically correct. Well, I guess I heard if you're, call somebody a racist, that's basically because you don't have a valid argument to present. It's just the easy way out, like calling somebody fat. If you're being politically correct, usually a lot of times all that means is you're trying to change the way you word your opinion or present your opinion in order to appease someone who really probably will never like you anyways. It's very interesting. But anyways, let's just take this for example. So you video this guy and maybe he is a racist and a murderer and he wanted to murder that guy, and every time he gets makes an arrest on a black guy, he tries to murder him. And on this situation, he just happened to get filmed and happened to get caught up in it, and that's the way it is. Or maybe he didn't like the guy because he knew him and they worked together, and so he took it as far as he could and accidentally it went a little further because the guy had COVID-19. He was having trouble breathing. He was high or drunk or something, and he was still alive when he got put on the carrier into the ambulance, and lo and behold, he passed away. Okay. Maybe that's the case. I don't know. I really don't know what the case is, but just to say, let's not get excited till we get all the facts, doesn't seem to be politically correct anymore. And I find that very odd. And I find it very odd that, you don't see the point at which he wasn't willing to get in the car, that he was resisting and things like that. And you know what? Maybe the cop works in an area where he has a lot of troubled people that he has altercations with and arrests, and he just hates his opponent. Okay, it doesn't mean that he's racist, but maybe he hates his opponent. Or, like I said, maybe he just is a really bad cop. I don't know the answers to these things, but I don't think it should be beyond questioning. Like, you shouldn't feel like you're a bad person because you question it. And let's be honest, nobody really cares anyways, because they don't know the guy. Everybody pretends like they're all warm and, I really care and we're doing this for him. And look, you don't know him. All right, let's just be real. You want to sound like a good person, and you want to say the things that make you look like a good person, and you want to feel good about it. As maybe a lot of the video, it's hard for us to watch that. Just being a human being, it's hard to watch it. And no matter what, I am not justifying that cop's actions, because when the criminal said, hey, look, I can't breathe, he should have let up. There's no reason for that. But at the same time, I'm not a cop. And it's funny because, you probably hate it when somebody tells you how to do your job. Can you imagine what kind of joke it would be to take your spouse to the doctor, and the doctor goes to examine your spouse, and you're like, doctor, here, let me show you how to do an examination. I'm not a doctor, but I've watched a lot of TV shows and stuff. Everybody hates it when somebody else tells you how to do your job. But whenever one of these videos comes out, sure enough, here comes all the armchair police chiefs that are absolute experts. They might not be a lawyer, they could be an auto mechanic or maybe work at a factory or a fast food, and they're automatic experts, and we don't need to wait for the facts. We already know exactly what happened. One time I had this book, it's called Whatever You Think the Opposite. You have to wonder, are you not only putting yourself in the criminal's position, but also the cops? And I just think the world's kind of upside down and backwards now, because I always grew up, the cops were the good guys and the robbers were the bad guys. Now we make the villains into the heroes, and the cop's a bad guy. I know what it's like to be harassed by a cop, and I don't think anybody really loves the police until you're in a situation you need the police. But try to imagine a world without police. See, I don't really know what the solution is here, but I think people might be looking at a lot of things the wrong way. Because again, you could be trying to build up the situation instead of necessarily trying to tear everything down and be divisive and things like that. There was this great saying, when we're fools, we wish to rule the world. And when we are wise, only ourselves. And it just makes me think, is our country's biggest problem how the etiquette between police and criminals? Is that really the biggest concern, is how criminals are being treated, that we turn our country upside down to make sure that I do believe we shouldn't be violating people's rights, and maybe the police do need to be reformed. And a little of this is always good, but I also think, people say, well, we shouldn't have to fear the police. I think it's not necessarily unhealthy to fear the police. That's a lot of reason why I might be inclined to not do a crime. I don't feel like it's my right to be able to do crimes and not have to fear when I get arrested. Let's face it, here's the easy solution. Try not doing crimes. Try living an honest life. But again, instead of trying to change the world, we could just change ourselves. And if we all just changed ourselves, we'd end up changing the world. So if you like this video, as long and drawn out as it is, please go ahead and hit that like button. And hopefully this was helpful and not hurtful and hateful, because it's definitely not my aim here. Have a great day.